Just 5 minutes ago, Richard Tice said something that lit a fire under British politics. It wasn't whispered in a back room. It wasn't hidden behind polite language. He stood on stage, looked straight at the cameras and said what many have been thinking or fearing about immigration. Within seconds, Labour and the Liberal Democrats were already preparing their replies. What Tice said wasn't just bold. It might be the spark that starts Britain's next political war. It happened during a heated political event in central London where Reform UK leader Richard Tice was speaking to supporters and journalists. The atmosphere was tense. Immigration had already become a hot topic across the UK after recent reports showed a record number of arrivals over the past year. As Tice took the podium, the audience expected strong opinions, but what he delivered went far beyond that. Standing confidently, with cameras rolling and microphones pointed his way, Tice launched into a speech that instantly stirred the nation. His words were clear, direct, and impossible to ignore. He said, "Britain is full. We cannot take any more. Our public services are breaking. Our borders are weak, and no one in power is willing to say the truth." The room erupted, some clapping, others wide-eyed with shock. Tice didn't slow down. He went on to accuse the current political leadership of turning a blind eye to what he called an immigration crisis. Tice claimed that both Labour and the Conservatives had betrayed the British people by refusing to take strong action. He pushed for a full freeze on immigration and called for immediate deportations of those who had arrived illegally. He also criticised asylum policies, saying they were being used by people who have no respect for our laws, values, or borders. His words weren't just sharp, they were designed to provoke, and they did exactly that. The media didn't waste a second. Clips of the speech were shared across every major platform within minutes. Headlines flashed. Tice declares Britain full. Immigration speech stuns political world. And Reform UK leader sparks storm over migrants. Newsrooms scrambled to contact Labour and Lib Dem leaders for reaction. But before they could even issue official statements, public reaction had already begun. On social media, the clip went viral. Supporters of Tice called him brave. They said he was finally saying what ordinary Britons feel every day. That the country is overwhelmed, that hospitals are full, housing is stretched, and schools are under pressure. One commenter wrote, "Well, Tice just said what every working class family is thinking, but too scared to say." But the backlash came just as fast. Many users, politicians, and activists accused Tice of promoting hate and division. Human rights organisations warned that his words could fuel hostility toward migrants and refugees. Some even called for the speech to be investigated under incitement laws. Meanwhile, that journalists began digging deeper into the speech. Fact-checkers questioned Tice's numbers, pointing out that the UK still has labour shortages in key sectors like farming, healthcare and construction. Others argued that immigration contributes more to the economy than it takes. But by then, the political damage, or momentum, depending on who you ask, had already been done. Richard Tice had made immigration the centre of national conversation. And for better or worse, he had made sure that no party could ignore the issue any longer. Within minutes of Richard Tice's speech going viral, both the Labour Party and Liberal Democrats moved into damage control. Phone lines buzzed, press teams rushed to draft responses, and senior party figures prepared to speak out. What Tyson said wasn't just another comment tossed into the news cycle. It was a direct challenge to everything the current government and opposition had built their immigration stance around. Labour's reaction came first. Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper stood in front of the press and firmly rejected Tice's claims. She said, "This kind of language is dangerous. It creates fear, it divides communities, and it does nothing to solve real issues. Britain has always been a welcoming nation, and we will not be dragged into the politics of hate and blame." Cooper reminded reporters that immigration policies under Labour would focus on firm control with fairness, balancing border management with respect for international law and human dignity. Labour's message was clear. They were not going to let Tice frame the national conversation unchecked. Sir Keir Starmer himself later posted on social media calling Tice's remarks reckless and inflammatory. He said the Reform UK leader was trying to distract from real solutions by pointing fingers instead of building policies. Starmer emphasised the need to invest in border security but also protect legal pathways for asylum seekers and skilled workers. You can be strong on security and still decent, he wrote. Then came the Liberal Democrats and their tone was even sharper. Party leader Ed Davey held a short but powerful press briefing where he condemned Tice's speech as the worst kind of political showmanship. Davey accused Tice of trying to score points by using migrants as scapegoats. It's the same old trick, he said. When a politician has no plan, no numbers, and no answers, they blame immigrants. We've seen it before, and the British public deserves better. Davey also pointed to the humanitarian side of the story. He reminded the press that many of the people Tice was referring to were fleeing war, climate disaster and political persecution. Our values don't stop at the border, he said. Britain is proud of its compassion and we won't let populists rewrite that legacy. But it wasn't just politicians who reacted. Legal experts and community leaders quickly joined the response. Immigration lawyers warned that Tice's call for mass deportations was legally impossible under international treaties Britain had signed. Some advocacy groups like Refugee Action and Liberty UK called his language dehumanising. Religious figures, including bishops and imams, issued joint statements urging all politicians to show restraint and avoid making vulnerable communities the target of hate. However, Reform UK wasn't backing down. As Labour and the Lib Dems spoke out, Tice's own party released a defiant statement saying the criticism proved he was telling truths that the elite can't handle. They accused Labour of being soft and silent on illegal immigration and claimed the Lib Dems were out of touch with ordinary people. Reform UK went on to say that British citizens had been shoved aside for too long and it was time to put our people first. The clash between these political forces was now fully public. No more quiet debates behind closed doors. What started as one man's speech had turned into a full-blown national argument. And this wasn't just noise. What each party said and how the public responded would shape policies, campaigns, and perhaps even the next general election. The moment Richard Tice's immigration remarks hit the airwaves, the battle didn't stay in Parliament or press conferences. It exploded across the country. Within hours, every major news outlet, talk radio programme and social media platform was deep in debate. Some were shocked, others were furious, and many were cheering. But one thing was clear, the British public was paying close attention. Across the country, polls showed an immediate split. Supporters of Reform UK praised Tice for telling it like it is. They argued that he was the only leader speaking honestly about what they saw as the daily pressures of uncontrolled immigration. In towns hit hard by economic struggle, his words resonated. Local interviews revealed people who felt overlooked. Parents who said their children couldn't get school places, families struggling to get GP appointments, and workers competing for low-wage jobs. For them, Tice's blunt language wasn't offensive. It was refreshing. A man in Yorkshire told a radio caller, "I'm not against people coming here, but it's got to be fair. It's got to be controlled. Tice is just saying what the government won't admit." Others echoed similar views, especially among working-class voters who had once supported Labour but now felt abandoned by mainstream politics. But the reaction was far from one-sided. Many Britons saw Tice's words as a dangerous turning point. University students, minority communities, human rights activists, and even former civil servants voiced concern. They said this kind of rhetoric could fan the flames of racism and division. Protests were organised in several cities, with crowds holding signs reading, "Britain welcomes all" and "Say no to hate politics." Online campaigns pushed hashtags like #StopTheFear and #StandWithMigrants into trending status. The backlash also spilled into workplaces, schools and public transport, where overheard conversations and tensions revealed how deep the divide was growing. Some employers warned against political arguments among staff, while teachers reported increased anxiety among migrant children who had seen the headlines. Meanwhile, political commentators began analysing the broader impact. On talk shows and podcasts, experts said Tice had successfully dragged the immigration issue back into the spotlight, on his terms. One analyst noted, "He may not win mass support, but he shifted the conversation. That's power." The main political parties had no choice but to respond. Labour began pushing its updated immigration policy harder, trying to walk a tightrope between control and compassion. The Lib Dems doubled down on their progressive stance, hoping to appeal to younger and urban voters. Even the Conservatives, usually tough on migration, were suddenly in an awkward spot. Criticising Tice too much risked losing right-wing voters, but staying silent made them look weak. Interestingly, some Reform UK insiders privately admitted that the backlash wasn't a surprise. It was the plan. According to leaked messages reported by a journalist, the party wanted a dramatic reaction. They believed that strong opposition from the establishment would help them paint themselves as political outsiders, fighting for the real voice of Britain. And the strategy was working. Membership in Reform UK reportedly surged in the 48 hours following the speech. Donations increased. Engagement on their social media platforms hit new highs for Tice. It seemed like a victory. For his critics, it was a warning. This wasn't just a one-day media cycle. This was the kind of political earthquake that has aftershocks, ones that ripple into voting booths, parliamentary debates, and the national mood. What started as one statement from Richard Tice has now grown into a national turning point, one that could reshape the political future of the United Kingdom. This immigration controversy hasn't just stirred emotions. It's forced every major party to take a hard look at where they stand and, more importantly, where the country is heading. For Reform UK, this moment may be their biggest breakthrough yet. Tice didn't just gain headlines, he gained attention, supporters and momentum. The way his message resonated in working class communities and with frustrated voters could mark the beginning of a real shift. Some analysts are now calling Reform UK a legitimate threat in upcoming elections, particularly in marginal seats where voter loyalty is weak and public frustration is high. And unlike earlier moments, this controversy gave Reform UK what every outsider party craves: national relevance. But that rise creates new pressure. If Reform UK continues to push hardline views, it will force the traditional parties to respond or risk looking disconnected. Labour, for instance, now finds itself in a difficult spot. Starmer's team must balance keeping its progressive base, while not alienating voters worried about border control and community strain. Too soft, and they lose the middle ground. Too firm, and they risk angering younger voters and human rights advocates. The Liberal Democrats also face challenges. Their firm stand against Tice's rhetoric may strengthen their image as the defenders of inclusion and compassion. But in an increasingly divided nation, that position may appeal only to a limited audience. As public debate grows more intense, their message could struggle to reach those who feel the system is broken. Even the Conservative Party, which has long taken a hard stance on immigration, now finds itself outflanked. Tice is offering an even tougher voice, and it's winning attention. The Tories must now decide whether to shift further right, potentially alienating moderates, or stick to their current line and risk being seen as ineffective by their own base. Whichever path they choose, it's a gamble. Meanwhile, other political risks are emerging. Analysts worry that if this tone continues, if immigration becomes a battleground for fear instead of facts, it could lead to more than just political division. There are concerns about increased hate crimes, protests turning violent, and long-term damage to the nation's unity. Britain has seen moments like this before, moments where language leads to action, and the deeper the split becomes, the harder it will be to repair. Parliament itself may soon reflect these tensions. Upcoming debates are expected to grow even more heated. There's talk of new legislation being introduced, possibly tighter immigration laws or proposals for stricter speech guidelines around political rhetoric. Either way, this isn't just talk anymore, it's action. At the heart of all this is a question every party now has to answer. Who really speaks for the British people? Is it the politicians calling for calm and compassion, or the ones shouting about chaos and control? Richard Tice may not hold office, but he's just proved that a well-timed message, spoken with force and controversy, can shift the entire political landscape. And as the country watches debates and decides, one thing is certain: British politics will not be the same after this.